Like if you're sitting in a kitchen for more than 10 minutes and you haven't seen the children and you can't hear them, something's going on. She showed me the stick and I don't believe that.
They're not always correct, I guess.
I was definitely in denial. Being able to have positive mental health in a world of just insanity is very important.
Hi, I'm Tony Cooper. This is the Dad Manual Podcast, and I'm here today with one of my favorite dads. You are Rachel and Pia and Evie's dad. Will you please introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Evan Cooper, and I'm a great dad, and I have lots of wisdom to share.
Yeah, and you have the same last name as I do.
I do, yes.
I think that's because we're brothers.
You're one of my older brothers, yes.
I am. You're the baby brother in the family. So I'm really excited for us to have this conversation because I think we've talked about a shit ton of stuff and we've talked a lot about being a dad. But, one of the things that I've really enjoyed about this podcast so far is I'm talking to people who maybe I've known for a very long time. And I'm learning so many new things about them, and not just about them, but about their fathering journey. And then I get to learn about different ways of being a dad. So tell me about your girls.
Rachel, as you said, Rachel Reese is 23 in August, and Pia and Evie are going to be 21 in June in a couple of weeks. So, yeah, at one point they were 3 under 2. Rachel she graduated from college last year, a year early, and she moved to LA so she could be near our brother Danny. And got a job. So she's awesome. She's in the world. She's doing her thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, and I have such respect for Rachel because Rachel has had this dream of pursuing a career in music, following after, our brother's footsteps. But, she really came at it and attacked it and found an incredible program and wanted to be in music management and has found a job in a very difficult industry in any year. You must be so proud of her.
Yeah. I mean, and this is a good advice for dads down the road. Certainly starting in 9th grade. And I wouldn't say Rachel is the best at this, but grades matter. Experience, activities matter. Go get involved. Figure out what you want to do and get involved, right? And then when she was in college, she had 7 internships. Intentionally went to school in Nashville so that she could be around jobs all the time. So, it's a big deal that she made it happen for herself. So Pia is going to be a senior in college.
I want to go back to when you said 3 under 2, Rachel was born and then 18 months or less later, I can't remember, 20 months, something like that later, you had twins. So that's Pia and Evie were born. And I remember calling you or talking to you and you're like, we're having twins. And I had just been through it, with Olivia and Leo born 18 months apart. And that was super overwhelming. And when you said we're having twins, I think that what came out of my mouth was oh shit, that's the worst of all possible scenarios. I mean,
it was a lot.
Having twins is one thing, but having him as your second round, that just felt like that would have been a huge thing. So
yeah, I mean, I would say, essentially a blanket was thrown over us and it was never taken off until we it was a lot. With Rachel, Meg breastfed her until she was 9 months old. And so, the funny story about that is the she would pump, right? And then we'd save the milk in the freezer so that we could go out, not give her formula. And that was a big deal for us. And I remember one time we came home and there were 6 things of the milk just sitting on the counter. And we went to Meg's parents, what's going on? They're oh, we just couldn't figure out how to get it to work. And so all that was gone. It was just lost. It was oh my God. That was
liquid gold.
Exactly. Yeah. Liquid gold.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, with Pia and Evie, we never tried really to do much of that. It was just every night you got a kid.
You guys assigned kids every night?
Right. And Meg had the inside game because she knew it was feeling worse. So she would usually pick first. And, quite frankly, she was at home with the kids. I was full-time working lots. And so, but when you get home, you're still the dad. Here's your kid,
Yeah. You remember, obviously my friend Wayne from growing up, he was ahead of me, but he told me, he talked about the number of kids and he said, when you have 1 kid, you can play zone defense. When you got 2 kids, you got to go man to man. when you got 3 kids, you're always on the downside of a power play.
Yeah. 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 No, there's a funny story. I thought about one of your dads was talking about the kid coming out dressed like covered in talc. Right. Well, so our deal was like, if you're sitting in the kitchen for more than 10 minutes and you haven't seen the children and you can't hear them, something's going on. That happened one day. I walk out into the hall. I look and there's just these 3 little girls giggling and covered in dirt and like 3 houseplants. Just like, I don't know what got, just was dirt everywhere all over them. It was insane. Yeah. And, that was the experience too. Like, God, I remembered at the end of each day, it was just like, can they please go to sleep so we can go to sleep? That was like, we look forward to that every day. It was just so much all the time, all the time.
All right. So back to Stephen Fielding, who lost his shit on his 2-year-old son with the talcum bar. How did you react?
That's nothing. It's nothing.
No.
Like that's vacuum cleaner, stick him outside. I don't think we hosed him off, but they should have been. Like that would have been a good punishment for that. Cold hose. No, that stuff doesn't set me off. All you can do is just laugh and cry.
What did set you off? What were the things that set you off?
There's a real energy that happens when they start arguing with each other and yelling at each other and fighting each other. And I, for the longest time, would get sucked into that energy. And it just like would just make me nuts. I couldn't control myself. I just get like, shut up, stop it. Like when they start yelling and screaming, I react.
What do you think what triggers you about that?
Like, I know you like to call generational trauma, where it's embedded in me. Like this yelling thing is just not good. And like, rather than being like, I reject this and I want to get rid of it. And early on, it just riles me up and gets me into the scene. And that's one thing that Meg would say to me is like, just get out of the room, just stay away. Cause that energy, you can't fight it. Girl energy like that when they're, especially as they get older, is a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. So that's interesting because you and I and Danny are just, our parents only had boys. And so we grew up with boys and really had very little exposure to like growing up with girls. I mean, we had some girl cousins, but they were older and we didn't really live anywhere near them. So, and then you go and you've got, you're the only guy in the whole house. So what were all the things you learned about girls?
Well, so the funny thing, there's a story when we found out, we went to get the ultrasound. Mom and Meg's mom were at the ultrasound for Pia and Evie, their first ultrasound. And at this point, we just knew Meg was probably pregnant, right? So the lady goes like, oh, I see a vulva. And they're all like cheering, like so excited. And then they're like, I see another vulva. And then it was like, what? And I'm like,
and you're like, what on 2 different beings or one being with 2 vulvas? Yeah.
I don't even know what a vulva is.
Oh my God.
That's basically how it goes. Like when we were expecting Rachel, I was super into like, no, I pulled all of my friends. I had a spreadsheet like of all the things I needed to know and do. And it was completely ready for everything. And those books, the What to Expect books, right? So I studied those. And there was this section that talked about like, if you really want to be close and helpful to your wife, like you should massage her perineum. Again,
oh, okay.
No idea what that is. I actually asked the OB.
There was no Google back then.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if I had OpenAI right now, like being a dad would be just a joke, But yeah, no, everything you had to figure out on your own. There certainly was Google. That's not true. There was Google when they were born. I asked the OB. I was like, "Can you tell me what that is?" And he just looked at me like, "Just stop. There's no sympathy. That's a very tough thing for being a girl dad. Like, and I really believe I'm a girl dad. Like, there's just coming from being a boy with brothers and that's it. Like, it is a lot of ignorance. And really, it continues that. Like, I don't really talk to my kids about actually, Pia used the term intimacy. Like, being intimate, like, we just don't talk about it. Like, it's not part of our subject world.
That is sort of interesting because I don't know. I guess I wouldn't know because I didn't grow up as a girl or with a girl, but it seems like talking about being a parent might be something that girls would do, but I don't know that we ever talked about it. So I don't even really know, like, as you were growing up, what your thoughts about being a dad was. And then just to hear you say that you did a whole bunch of research and prep. I mean, one, it doesn't surprise me about you, but two, I didn't know that about you. Like, when did it start for you thinking about being a dad? Was it after you were married, or like, was it something that you thought about growing up?
Yeah, I mean, like we were conscious enough about how the thing works, right? Like if you're on birth control, you're less likely to get pregnant. And if you go off birth control, like that's one barrier removed. But like I had no thought that like, oh yeah, we're gonna have kids. We'll keep doing the things we need to do. But
So you're talking about you and Meg are married, and up until that point, had you ever even thought about being a dad?
not really. No, I don't think so.
No. Okay. And then you're married, and you're like, I don't even know if we will. Is that sort of how it?
Yeah, actually, yeah, I don't know. Like you guys, we dated for a while. Like we had a lot of fun. I used to work in South America, and Meg used to come to South America, and it was a good life. It was fun. There was no reason to disrupt that. But it happened, right? And when it happened, like Meg's like, oh, she showed me the stick, and like I don't believe that, right? Like we had to go to the store and get another one to test again.
They're not always correct, I guess.
I was definitely in denial.
Okay, so then you guys are becoming a dad. So what switches in you then? And so now you're like, oh shit, I should pay attention.
I had a dream about 7 months into Meg's pregnancy where this dark-haired little girl wearing a soccer uniform came running off the field crying. And I woke up and I was like, oh, I'm going to be a dad. I mean, like the soccer thing is a thing, like, which is important to me, but that's like an important thing too, is like, just because you like soccer doesn't mean your kids are going to like soccer, like, I think that's an important lesson too, to have. But as it turned out, like that dream came true 2 or 3 times like that. Sometimes it was crying, sometimes it was laughing. When I was in business school, we wrote like a 15-year plan and, had like a bucket list of things. And one of them was to have my daughter run off the field after scoring a goal and hugging her. And
not crying.
And that was, Meg wasn't pregnant when I wrote that. So like somehow I mystically knew that this was going to happen. Like I've certainly accepted it, but it sort of became like, okay, yeah, you're going to become a dad. And then I, just embraced it and was ready for everything. We had the exact stroller we needed. We had the right packing place set up, like there was nothing we didn't have. We were just prepared to be parents of one.
So tell me about this research project that you engaged in. So you're like, I'm going to be a dad. I don't know shit about it. I need to figure some stuff out. How did you approach that?
Well, so you were part of it, but like it's funny because I did have friends who were parents who were like parent advocates. They're like, you got to have a baby. Like there's one guy, George, who's like, Evan, you have a baby, make it happen. And the first thing I did was to kind of be like, hey, what are the 10 things we need to focus on? What are the areas we need to think about? Like a stroller is a good example. Like that pack and play. What kind of diapers do you use? Do you use wipes? Like what happens? What are the kind of things that can happen? Like diaper rash or whatever, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. How do you get your kids to sleep? So I categorized it and I have a spreadsheet. And I couldn't find that spreadsheet. I have a feeling I know where it is. I couldn't find it. And it doesn't really matter. I don't need it. But, and that stuff also is of the time. So it probably isn't even relevant 20 something years later now.
Okay. So you were trying to understand the practical infrastructure of like becoming a parent. What do a kid need? But what did you do in terms of preparing for the emotional experience of being a dad? One of the topics that's really, I think, of significant interest is the, like, how were you raised? What was the impression about parenting that was made on you? Obviously, you and I had same upbringing, but probably had different experiences. And so like what left a sort of lasting mark on you, either positive or negative? And then, how did that play a role as you were preparing emotionally to become a dad?
I can't say that I feel like I had any kind of preparation from our parents of like how to be a dad. Like our parents were always very supportive of us. I don't feel they were very like, you have to do this. These are your rules. Like there were some rules, like there's some weird rules. I don't know if you remember, like you could only have 2 friends at the house at one time. Did you ever get that rule?
I don't remember that rule. No, maybe I didn't have more than 2 friends, so it didn't apply to me.
Right. When we lived on Conde, we had like 5 friends just on the street. And like one time they all came over and mom was like, what is going on?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Look, because that's when we moved to Miami. Like our house was definitely not a place of like welcoming for
Yeah.
large groups of people, right?
For me, that was the big thing. Was like, that's crazy. Like, who cares? Like, bring as many
Mm.
kids as you want. Whatever. We can always make more food. In fact, like we were the house. This is jumping really far forward, but like Rachel, she wasn't like a crazy partier, but she did her things in high school, and we chose to be the house that would allow her friends to come over and hang out in the basement, and drink. And we
Mm.
would take keys, at least initially, and like not let kids have their keys if they were drunk. Like be like, you can walk here, you can sleep on the couch or whatever, but you're not driving home. So I think like some of that experience led me to be more inclined to just be very open and very, a house that is always welcoming.
Yeah.
As far as like being a dad and what it means to be a dad, what I remember most about dad when we were younger is he used to have a microphone and he would like interview us and record. Do you remember any of that?
Oh, on tape, on like a little cassette tape. Yeah.
Right.
Recorder. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And like, so that was like, we engaged with him, like I remember doing this, like being in the pool, like he loved freaking out in the pool and throwing us around. Like, that's really fun. Like those things like that, like dad would be really fun with things like that,
Mm.
But what's strange is like, they didn't watch sports. They must have at some point, but I don't remember them watching sports with us at all.
I mean, we would go to some games at RFK.
I don't remember that at all. Yeah, the only 4 tickets. I stayed home.
Yeah, Doug, don't fucking tell Evan about this, okay? I don't know what your memories are growing up with dad, but like dad could be super fun and he could also be like super scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my recollection is like it was a little bit unpredictable. Like it was a little hard to know.
Yeah. No, what's obviously like it's come out now that there's an aspect of me that sort of suppresses any kind of emotions, like really being very joyful or very, very sad because it's just not practical. Like it would be too painful to live life like that. I've really worked a lot on empathy as a thing that I think it's hard to have empathy when you just don't want to have empathy because it's too painful. Physical abuse versus mental abuse, like probably mental abuse is just as or worse, right? So I think we've all figured that out over the last 10 years or so. We've all gone through our own processes on it. I guess eventually I've learned what not to do. And it took a long time, but I really worked on that aspect of being able to kind of disconnect myself from all that emotion I was talking about. And, I'm there, I'm here, and I'm not allowing it to get to me. Like I had this term that just showed up. It's around empathy, but the term of equanimity, so another E letter, like equanimity, the definition is a state of composure driven by awareness and acceptance of the present moment. So it forces you to be like, okay, I need to separate, absorb, we really know what's going on here. They're screaming and yelling, but I'm going to stay composed and not engaged in that.
You were talking before about like when your kids would yell, like you would yell, and like that natural yelling response that when the situation was kind of out of control, like, dad was really good at like bringing down the hammer and yelling. And it showed up a lot for me when the kids were really young. Like it wasn't even like a choice, but I would just like catch myself kind of screaming. And then Tammy would always go like, you're being like your dad.
Yeah.
And it took me a while, like you said, in the equanimity to be able to have my desired reaction to a moment as opposed to the one that was sort of programmed into me.
Right.
And then shows up unconsciously. And so what was your path to be able to shift that for yourself?
I think it just was a path of just becoming aware, especially as they got a little older, like, God, this is damaging them. This isn't good for them. Right. And also when like I see that was their natural reaction to things, like, oh, wow, now I just did it to them. And now it's in their generational trauma has been passed on. So I think it was that. I'm not going to say I'm a hero on this. Like no one's going to be like, oh, Evan, you are really a great model for this modeling the good behavior. Like I did talk to my kids before we talked and talked a little bit about it. And there really isn't that same kind of trauma. I mean, they feel it. Hopefully they have like a mindset, like this is something in me that I'm aware of going into it rather than like sort of at some point as a dad, you're like, oh shit, my wife needs to tell me how I'm being. And that's not good. Right. If it's not self-awareness, it's not really helpful.
I was remembering one time when Leo was little and I didn't even think I was really screaming, but he felt the anger or whatever it was that came out of me. And I just saw him like get scared and like get sad all at once. And it just fucking broke my heart. I'm like, oh my God, this is what happened to me, and I'm fucking doing it, and I'm
Yeah.
passing it on. That was definitely a huge wake up for me. I was like, I 100% don't want to do that. And thank God, like the first time I saw it, that is something I need to change because it was the worst part of my childhood. I don't want my kid to have that experience. So yeah, it's sometimes it takes that like heartbreaking moment too.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think it's perfect now, but they all seem to be doing pretty well, so that's good.
They're great kids. I wanted to talk about something that came up on one of my earlier podcasts. I was talking to, I think it was Shane, who he and his wife consciously split. They're no longer married, but they're co-parenting. And I think in the middle of the conversation, I was talking about how, in my opinion, that I feel like it's a disservice that you do to your kids if you don't like each other and you stay married for the kids, which is what you did. I was making the case that I was like, I think it's actually better for the kids to not do that, to separate. Now, I get it's inconvenient. Anyway, I was just making this statement and then it got put out on social media and then you saw it and you got upset because like on one, I think you thought I was talking about you, which I wasn't, but the shoe fits. So I really wanted us to talk about that, because I have my opinion about it. I want to know like one, what impact did hearing that have on you and what are your thoughts about it? Since then you had a chance to even talk to your daughters about that. So yeah, I'd love to hear from you.
I pull up my phone and there's you talking to me saying, yeah, parents should not stay together if they don't like you were talking to me. It's interesting, your words, like if your face looking at me, like that's how it came across. So I did feel attacked.
Yeah.
But, so like, I'll back up. Like at a certain point, yeah, there was insanity to blanket over us. I just was like, I've got to change. I started changing much more. I've been in my job for 9 years. It was a long time to be in one specific job. Like I was with GE for 23 years, but most of them, I was in lots of different jobs. But this one was 9 years and it was very absorbing. Like it was all of my time, 24/7. I was very hard to be engaged with my children. Plus I would go out of town, sometimes for 2 weeks, sometimes for 3 weeks. So,
Yeah.
3 weeks, you come back, you have a different child. Like you've come back to a different child.
True. They grow rapidly.
Plus, Meg, it's her house. It's not my household. Like I'm just re-entering this house. Right. So we grew apart. She more than me. So I started being like, I don't want a full-time job anymore. So a lot of things I probably did that did not make her happy. But I was very aware. I don't know, maybe the kids were like 12 or something, 11, 12. We were like, yeah, we're not getting along. But we need to agree to co-parent. Like that's what matters. These 3 children are the most important thing that matters. What I was very conscious of, I did not want them to do the live here for a few days, live there for a few days, live here for a few, go back and forth. That was probably my most conscious thing. And so it kind of sucked for like 10 years. But there's a couple of things that happen. One, not having to go back and forth. That's very, very traumatic for children. It's very hard. And I have a good number of friends who were divorced that went through that. And just, I was like, I can't do that to these kids. Plus, like, once you do that, especially if Meg had been like, hey, I want full custody or something, like, then you're not engaged with your children. And, Meg and I have different philosophies about certain things. And one thing is I'm really like push the kids to achieve more than they imagine they can achieve. Try something that they're scared to try, like to really get out there and be way beyond their comfort zones. And that's just not how Meg rolls, like generally. And then I did get feedback. I asked them, like, what are some things that really like struck you as me being a dad? And it's not like, oh, because you hugged us, dad, and you were like so sweet. It was like, you took us out there. You made us go out and accomplish more than we imagined we could accomplish. So I didn't want to not be present for that part of their lives. And, Evie ended up not going to college. She stayed at home for another year. Like that kind of put things off for another year because I didn't want her to not have that connection as well. And Evie, like I didn't actually talk to her about it. We were just driving home from college. I was driving her home and she brought up like, oh, Olivia, who's your daughter, my niece, like posted that thing. And she's like, fuck Tony. Like, what is he talking about? Like, why would he say he doesn't even know? He's never asked me. So it was hard. It's been a very hard life in a lot of ways, but I wouldn't trade it at all. And I'm happy where I am now.
Yeah, I think the point I was making, and look, I understand the like having them live in different homes, and I think there's there's different sides of that. I've seen people go like the kids get to live in one home and the parents come back and forth. Is
Yes.
another way of doing it. My point wasn't about any of that. It was, as parents, we're raising kids, but what we're also doing is we're embedding in them their idea of what relationship is.
Hmm.
So the point I was making is if you don't love each other, and you could even say like go to the far end of like if you hate each other, like dislike is one thing, hate each other is one other thing. And if it's open and that's what's shown to the kids, like subconsciously it's embedded in them that that's what a relationship is supposed to be like. And
Yes.
to me, it was like, it's better to inconvenience everybody if what you're embedding in them, relationships really are meant to be loving and caring and respectful.
Mhm.
And so that was the point I was making about it. And what I just heard you say is part of one of the reasons why that wouldn't have worked for you is because you and Meg had such different opinions about how to raise a kid. It's almost like you were afraid to not be there to see what might go down when you weren't around.
It's not almost like it was. That is,
Yeah.
that is it. Yeah. And also, like the reality is, so they all, Rachel's, I don't know, in her third year in a relationship. They seem very, very happy together. And I've talked about it. She doesn't, like, she gets it. They observe what happened, but they also, like for the first 10 years of her life, and I sent you all those pictures, like we were very close, like, and things were great. So I think they absorbed a lot of positive things. And they also absorbed like parents they were aware that didn't get along, but stayed together for them. And so I think they took the positive from that rather than thinking, oh, this is how relationships should be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, and what you're saying about, Rachel and Jackson, they just seem really like at ease and really comfortable with each other. And they really, really like each other. And
Yeah. Pia
yeah.
has a boyfriend she's very close with. Evie has a boyfriend she's very close with. Like, so Evie just went yesterday to go spend the summer with him. So, they seem fine. They seem fine. We'll see what happens 15 years from now, but.
So what you were referencing is like where your relationship started to fall apart was when you really made a big life change. Early part of being a dad, you were traveling a lot, you were working a lot, and then all of that changed, and you essentially then, eventually kind of became a full-time dad.
I always knew that I wanted to be an engaged dad. If I'm going to be a dad, I'm going to be involved, right? So I didn't have that. Like, it was too much. Like, I would leave the house at 7 and come home at 6 on an everyday normal day, right? That was just normal.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing happened in the morning. By the time I get home, they're all, it's the end of the day. So that sucked. I just couldn't deal with that. So my job, I was able to structurally create some space. So I became a remote worker before it was a thing. And then I got a new boss who didn't like that. That didn't help. I knew I couldn't have a job where I just wasn't with my children. It just wasn't where I wanted to be. It wasn't fair for them. It wasn't fair for me.
Yeah, and then you got really involved, and then one of the things I know that you love to do is you love to cook.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I've never asked my nieces about it, but like, what's their relationship to cooking? What's been the impact of you spending so much time and, you had a cafe, like you really tried a lot of different things. You really brought the culinary art into their lives in a big way. What's the impact on that?
Yeah. So like one of the things that Rachel was saying about when I asked, like, what did I do for you? And she's like, no matter what she wanted to try, you were always supportive of it. So she did a bat mitzvah project where she had a business called Rachel's Cookie Jar. So we worked together, came up with the idea. Like, I helped her develop the recipe and really helped her learn how to make it. Then we figured out how to package it, and we created a website, and she did most of the work, but I was there helping her. And so she had a business, and she actually used to sell baked goods until she got told by the school she wasn't allowed to do that. But, all through her life, whenever she wanted to learn how to make something, she would just come and we'd work on it together. And so she now, like, she can make anything. Like, she really can sit down. She's gluten-free, so she has some limits on what she makes. But yeah, so she's really gotten into it. Pia also. So Pia just moved into an apartment, and she had like an apartment type dorm last year. So she's been cooking for herself. Her boyfriend cooks a lot too. She just sent me a picture. She had made peanut butter cookies, with the little fork imprints on them. So they really got that. And now, so they don't even have to think about it, like they just know how to make food for themselves. And Evie, I guess the jury's still out. I don't know. I don't know how much she cooks. She's the funniest because she's of all the kids, she's the one that least likes homemade food. Like, what a little Debbie snack cake is? Like she'll be like, I'll take that over one of your homemade brownies. Not always, but yeah, she actually likes that
Boo.
flavor. Yeah, I know, right. And they all would ask me to make things from, like, it's one of my favorite things to do when someone says, hey, can you make this? And then I'll figure it out. Like Evie came over the other day and I made her some fettuccine Alfredo from scratch. And she's like, oh, that's awesome. Thank you, Dad.
So you've been entrepreneurial for 10 years? How long? Something like that?
Probably closer to 15. Yeah.
15 years. And then you started a cafe. And so, like, how did that impact the girls seeing you do that? You ever talk to you about that?
Not a lot, except for the fact that they, at least Rachel and Pia and Meg also, she started her own law firm. Like she's very entrepreneurial too, like very, very inspiring. I think it just taught them, like, if you want to get things, you have to work for them. I mean, that's one of the weird things, basically up until like the end of my 23-year career, I never thought about stuff like that. Like you just go to work and you get paid and, you go to work, you get paid, you get a new job, whatever. Like, all of a sudden you're like, oh, I don't know when I'm going to get paid next, right? Or whether what I'm doing is going to be successful. Like you're doing, a lot more business development, like as an engineer, that wasn't a thing that was a thing to me, but now it's like a reality every day, I think they just took that. There's different ways to work, and there's a lot of different ways you can succeed. Some of the stuff I do isn't for money, like all the stuff I do with the Cleveland schools and the culinary programs. It's, to help people get jobs and help people graduate. So I just have a different perspective on, they saw me as a worker guy, like a corporate guy, and then they see me, being able to wear t-shirts and shorts all day long.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So thinking back on just the different, over the years with your kids and being a dad, what's been some of the really hard parts that you remember that you struggled with, maybe you learned something from? What were some of those experiences?
Really, the hardest part for me is when they get hurt. I grew up, I don't know if you remember, I used to get hurt a lot. Rachel hurt herself a bunch of times. She got back. She was junior year. She was varsity soccer. First game out, she gets on the field. She's dribbling around. She looks great. And she was wearing a knee brace. And some girl from the other team just came in with her foot right under her knee and just crushed it. And I was sitting in the stands, and you're not allowed to go onto the field. Like in high school, that at least where we were, you're not allowed to go in the field. And them being hurt in pain, it's killed me. It killed me. And that, and I couldn't see her for like 45 minutes. It was like one of the worst things I'd ever experienced.
What do you think is so difficult for you to watch your kid in pain?
Because that shouldn't be. Like it shouldn't be. They shouldn't be in pain. Like they should be healthy and they shouldn't have to deal with this stuff. And it was just like, especially like there was one game Pia was playing in. She's running down the field, little Pia, whatever. And she's got these girls all around her. And all of a sudden she's in the air. She's vertical and she's spinning around and she slammed onto the ground. And I was like, what just happened there? And, she was in a ton of pain, like really hurt herself. Elbow issues, arm issues, leg issues, hip issues, so ankle. I don't like them not feeling well.
Yeah.
They had a little bit of boy stuff going on. Like I really was kind of kept out of a lot of their boy stuff, but just seeing them be sad with that was also not fun. I know you've talked about that with Olivia a little bit, like just seeing their hearts break and you can't do anything. There's nothing you can do about it. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a miracle worker. Right. So you just have to sit there and just like, I guess it's part of me really then feeling that pain for them. So they're, developing some empathy.
Well, it's not just developing empathy. It's like the depth of empathy. When you become a dad, like you love in a way that you just don't have access to previously. Like there's something that comes about. And so you love them so much and it's your job to protect them. And sometimes you can't. And then they feel that thing and you feel their pain. Like it's a weird, a weird thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's funny. Like there's the whole sport thing. So they all ended up playing soccer at times in their lives. Because I know you did a lot of coaching. I did some coaching. And there's one time like the head coach wasn't there. So he's like, oh, you got to do the game. And it was almost impossible for me to coach them, especially with Pia and Evie. It's very hard for me just to watch a game because they're on two different places, and like I'm trying to pay attention to both of them. But then to be like the coach and be like, okay, I'm not their coach, I'm everybody's coach. That was really hard for me. Like to be anybody but their coach.
Yeah. What are some of the things that you have really appreciated about being a dad? Like, especially, growing up, not even really thinking too much about it, being married, not even thinking too much about it. Like, what have been some of those unexpected, like gut punch, like moments of being a dad for you?
Just hanging out with them, like, and definitely as they got older, they don't want to hang out with me very much, So like, I
Mm.
treasure those times. And like, we used to go hiking all of the time. And there's this one particular park we used to go to, like in the middle of the winter, they would just march up and down hills. And that was the one I went to this winter, like the new town I moved into. That's our town park. And, just spending time with them, being outdoors, cooking with them. Rachel, of all the three, is the most sporty and like into sports. Like last year when we went to LA to visit, she's like, I want to go see the Orioles. They were playing in Anaheim. So we drove down to Anaheim for that. So that, like going, when that happens, it's pretty cool. Pia is definitely the like yay sports kind of person. Like she could care less. And Evie's in between. Like Evie's actually gone to a number of preseason games with me a lot, So like just going to things, even though they're totally not into it, like, and they're not able to talk about it. They don't really watch sports with me, but like just hanging out with them, doing fun stuff like that.
Yep. Yep. I always like to ask for advice for new dads. So, thinking about that, becoming a dad, and in particular yours, like, for people who maybe haven't thought too much about it, but like all of a sudden it's sprung on you and you're like, it's a brand new reality. I mean, I haven't really done any prep. What would you have wanted to have known? What would have been helpful? And what would you impart to a brand new father?
Okay, so my friend Guy told me this, not your guy, a different guy. Happy wife, happy life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I wish I had listened to him and really paid attention to that. And just in general, like being a dad is important, but being a mom is more important.
Mm-hmm.
How it ends up, at least in our family with girls, all credit to all the great things that Meg did, and it's hard. Like I had a full-time job. It's a lot of things, but like that, you just have to constantly come back to, and just in general, like having emotional intelligence and having that before you become a dad and being very good at that and knowing that you can deal with the stress rather than reflecting it back. Being able to have positive mental health in a world of just insanity is very important.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Getting more insane by the moment.
Yes. Yes.
Evan, this is so great. I'm glad we got to have this conversation. I love you. Thanks so much for being open to this and sharing your experience. I loved getting to hear your perspective. That like it is amazing. Like I'm really hoping that this somehow sparks more dads talking about the realness of what being a dad is, and you've shared that today. So thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you. I love you too, man. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk to you.
Yeah. All right. Well, until next time.
Until next time.
I just want to thank you for listening to this episode of the Dad Manual Podcast and for supporting dads to become the best version of themselves as they strive to bring healing and inspiration to their families. I'm looking to grow a community of fathers who are ready to change the world, but I need your help. It's super valuable to the podcast when you like an episode, when you leave us a rating and subscribe to our YouTube channel, when you follow us on Instagram at the Dad Manual Podcast, and maybe even the most important, when you share the podcast with the dad you love. Also, you can impact what we talk about here. If you've got questions or topics you want me to explore, email them to me at dadmanualpodcast@gmail.com. I would love to answer your question on our next episode. And until next time, I'm Tony Cooper, and this is the Dad Manual Podcast.